Yesterday, Friday, the 28th day of April 2023, was to me a bad day and a sad day for this country. Not about the horror that is coming from Shakahola. That's bad enough, of course. It's a national tragedy. But sad because the two men in whose hands the future of this country currently resides have gone out of their way, in my humble opinion, to show that they don't care what happens to this country. Yesterday, Raila arriving from Dubai after a week headed straight to Kamkunji grounds in Kibra. From Kibra, he talked tough, but more importantly, and saddest for me, he said, we are back to the streets, and specifically on the 2nd of May, Tuesday, next week. While this may sound sweet to many Kenyans, to me, as a man who loves this country, I see doom. From another quarter of the country, President William Samoei Ruto was spitting fire. Frankly speaking, I've never seen the president that angry, that annoyed. The president and his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, dared Raila Odinga, with Gachagua saying, we welcome you back to the streets. As if, and I hope Gachagua is listening, as if when the people go to the streets, they are going to take coffee in some coffee house in Nairobi town. The president on his part told Raila he will not allow it. The president said, not under his watch. He will not allow these demonstrations, and therefore he will deal with them firmly. This makes me a worried man. I'm a worried man because if the two leaders had not declared ceasefire on that Sunday, I stand here to tell Kenyans that I very much doubt we will be having our country as we have it today. When Gachagua talks about welcoming Raila back to the streets, that the streets are there, the roads are there, I doubt his understanding of the seriousness of the matter. I may be a coward. To some, I may be an alarmist. To some, I may even be a fool. Maybe I am. But listen to a fool tell you that you are facing danger. Even the great general, Roman general, Julius Caesar, was warned by a soothsayer to be aware by days of March, but he said he was a dreamer. Allow me to be a dreamer, but warn you, my dear fellow countrymen, we are staring disaster in the face. I've run a hashtag. This country is too good to go down. I still mean it, and it comes from deep down me. That Monday, if the demonstrations had been held, from my own assessment, there was going to be trouble in this country. And therefore, as we willingly drive ourselves into mass action, with the Kenya Kwanza side led by Ruto and Gachagua being obstinate, contemptuous, perhaps not serious about the talks, and with the other side saying the only language you understand is mass action. Let's go. This country is staring trouble, big trouble, big trouble. Ask the two leaders, assess what you are entering into. That the future of this country, the future of the children of this country and of their children is in your hands. Try whatever you can not to be reckless in matters of state. You cannot destroy a country you want to lead. Then what are you going to lead? What are you leading if you destroy the country? I want to address myself to the President of the Republic of Kenya and those around him who think that government can control the masses. I've said this before, but let me repeat it. And I hope intelligent, serious people within government are listening to me, or they'll be told what I've said. That's the modern state, in a very global way, in a very general way. The modern state is less organized than society. Number two, the modern state is less powerful than society. That the people are more powerful than government. So this you have to know. Even as you say you're going to crush the demonstrations. You have to know that the Kenya of 2021 is not the Kenya of Jomo Kenyatta of 1970, 1969, 1975. That William Samoei Ruto does not have the benefit that Jomo Kenyatta had after the assassination of Tom Mboya in 1969, or the assassination of J.M. Kariuki in 1975. He doesn't have the benefits that Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi had when he faced upheavals that might include some assassinations, the attempted coup of 1982, the multi-party wave of 1990 and thereabouts, where the instruments of state, the constitution and the laws of the land gave the president the power that William Samoei doesn't have. Samoei Arap Ruto. The citizen of 2021 is an informed citizen who you couldn't compare at all, you can't compare at all to the citizen of 1980. Today's citizen is informed. We are talking of a past when government had a monopoly of information. When the only television state was VOK and later KBC. Same for radio. Today, it is known even before it happens. And because of the state of information and how the average citizen is informed, government's power begins to diminish. Today's citizen is a much more informed citizen, courtesy of education. The level and the penetration of education in this country means, therefore, you are dealing with an enlightened citizen. A citizen who is aware of their rights. A citizen who is courageous. A citizen who sees what is happening in Sudan and elsewhere, in Sri Lanka. Government, therefore, my advice and information to government, government does not have the sort of power people may think government has. Government, therefore, doesn't have the wherewithal when, as they say, the rubber meets the road. At that most crucial and critical moment, when government needs to use force, government will find doesn't have that power, doesn't have that force. Not to mention that we are an ethnically fragile society. And this fragmentation is reflected elsewhere. For government to say they can move with force to stop demonstrations, in my honest opinion, and I want to advise government, is to engage in daydreaming. And for the president to say he will not allow, it simply comes to my mind to mean that the president would want to suspend the Constitution. Because until you suspend the Constitution, the president does not have the power to deny Kenyans their right to demonstrations, guaranteed not by an act of parliament, but by the Constitution they so hardly fought for. And therefore, I do not see any conceivable way in which government will have the power to control the demonstrations. I've said this repeatedly. And therefore, we have a situation where on the one hand, Raila Odinga feels government is not serious about the talks. And he goes back to the people. And it is evident that the people still listen to Raila Odinga. The people are willing to turn out to listen to him. And when he says back to the streets, the reception makes me almost collapse. It tells me, and Kibra MP said it clearly in broad daylight, that there are so many people in their thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, who are not happy that Raila was able to call off the demonstrations. And therefore mention of back to the street excites many people. So here you are, an opposition leader that can mobilize people who are more than willing to go to the streets, and a president who says he will not allow it. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow countrymen, we are walking into danger with our eyes open. I've said repeatedly, men have always talked, but after calamities. Wars have claimed millions of people, but at the end of the war, people talk. The question that always comes to mind is this: why did people find it necessary to talk before such a serious loss of human lives? Why must Ruto and Raila wait until we have destroyed our country and then they inevitably get forced to talk? I want them to listen to a man who loves this country. Sit down and talk. I would understand when in the process of talking There are disagreements, even violent ones, because that is normal. I would understand when the government delegation to the talks insists we shall not discuss the servers. I will understand. I will have no problem with it. I will understand when the Raila sides in the talks say it is either the servers or nothing. I will understand. I would understand even the stalemate. What I find difficult, nay, impossible to understand, leave alone accept, is that Kenyans cannot agree to sit down and talk. That is stupid, and we must call it stupid, irrespective of who are involved in that. That 2 Kenyans, 3 Kenyans cannot sit down and talk about their country, talk about the future of their children. People cannot sit down as brothers and sisters to talk. We would understand if they disagreed on matters, certain issues, on positions. That we shall understand. That we shall give them. That is normal in discussions. That is normal in dialogue. That is normal in negotiations. For people not to agree on positions, on stands, on certain things. That is normal. What is not normal, actually stupid, is that we can drive our country into destruction because we are unable to sit on a table. How would I understand that? How? What shall we tell our grandchildren? That we destroy the country because Kenyans couldn't sit down on a table and talk? That Kenyans are scattered across the world as refugees because leaders could not sit down and talk? How can you tell your grandchildren that? That you are living in some village and you've left your house in Lavington, you don't know who's staying in because Kenyans couldn't sit down and talk? That we have disrupted education for our children and schooling? That at sometimes in the future, we will have 20-year-old children, men, going to start class 1 because there's a long disruption. Because Kenyans couldn't sit down and talk? How do I buy that? How do I believe that? How do I accept it? That because an individual must be included in a negotiating team, an individual, one person can mess the lives of 50 million Kenyans for him to be in a team. I mean, how do these leaders take us? They think our heads are pumpkins? We carry porridge inside these heads? That there's a stalemate because a person is included in a team? Against the provisions of the law? Against common sense? A stalemate that can destroy the country? That we all love, I suspect. Sometimes I think we don't love it as much as I do. Sit down and talk. Nobody ever gets everything from a talk, and nobody loses everything. People can't agree on everything. That's normal. We will accept that. But to fail to sit down and talk, instead to go to rallies and talk about people carrying sufurias, I rest my case. Sometimes I feel I'm the only one who loves this country. So I rest my case by asking President William Ruto and Honorable Raila Odinga to reconsider. Tuesday is not far. I want to remind these 2 leaders that this thing could get out of hands. I'm using the word could because I want to be a bit optimistic. Wait until Raila says we are resuming the demonstrations the following week and the people tell him no, they continue. That is the time you will know that Manyora had a point. This thing will get out of hand. And therefore, between today and that Tuesday, I urge the government, I urge these two leaders. I said before, sit down, the two of you, and set the agenda for your teams to talk, and let them talk. Where they are stuck, they make reference to you. Issues of procedure, issues of how do we start, who do we include in the team, those are minor issues. We can't set our country on fire because we have refused to sit down and talk. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. I fear it may not, but I pray it does.